Thank you very much, Speaker. So, President, you are speaking about renewal and different of things, but I think the more you speak, the more confusing you become, because first, in your State of Nation address, you didn't mention the NDP. When you responded, you spoke about the NDP as your plan. But your 54th National Congress, ideological underpinnings of land expropriation, not compensation, nationalization of the Reserve Bank, creation of a sovereign wealth fund, and a variety of what could be a radical shift of what the ANC has been doing doesn't appear in the NDP. So like altogether, your 54th National Conference, it fundamentally changes what the NDP stands for. Why do you want to insist that you are being guided by the National Development Plan, which is radically different and contradictory in many instances to what your conference has resolved? What do you stand for?
The Honorable the President.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Shivambu, what we really stand for is what will advance the interests of South Africans. That's what we stand for. Now you talk about the NDP. The NDP is the policy that we have adopted as this Parliament. I just want you to remind you that. You are a member of Parliament. We are all members of Parliament. This Parliament adopted the NDP. I'm sorry you were not there, but as it is, there's a concept called democratic centralism. You are also bound by the decisions that were taken by this House. So this House, and indeed the governing party, having adopted the National Development Plan, also said the National Development Plan is a living document. It's not a static document. It is a living document that we need to look at consistently and continuously to see what we can take out of the NDP in order to improve the lives of our people. You will know, as you are also on the left, that there are quite a number of institutions or structures that are on the left that have raised concerns about the economic chapter of the NDP. They being COSATU, and they being the South African Communist Party. And we have said that we are willing, prepared, and able to look at that chapter. And I'd like to invite you, Honorable Shivambu, to join the process of looking at that chapter of the NDP to see how best it can be improved. And you seem to be a person who is full of ideas, and so you are therefore invited that you can do so. But what really guides us is how we improve the lives of our people without adhering to slogans, without pontificating, and without just addressing ourselves to the gallery. We are more interested in saying, this is how you advance the interests of South Africans. Yes, when it comes to land, which I will address in a minute, the National Development Plan does not address the land question in a way that this Parliament has now taken a resolution to push the land question forward. And we must say that is where the NDP becomes a living document. Becomes a living document because it is there to be improved, to be sharpened, and to be used as an instrument that can improve the lives of our people. And I hope that you will find that satisfactory, because if you were thinking that the NDP is a static document, the answer is no. And maybe in your own time, you will find that your own party will be able to adopt the NDP as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President. I had pressed earlier to speak about the land, and unfortunately I was not recognized. But I'm happy that you acknowledge the good work of our Mayor Mashaba there, the Mayor of the EFF. who's doing a wonderful job for the EFF in the Joburg municipality. And that these people are going to continue losing all the time when they speak against the land because they've already lost a metro because of the land. Now, Mr. President, I want to check, which law were you relying on when you paid these monies? Because the law that most of your people refer to is actually not that clear as to whether the state can pay for such offenses. And since now the president has lost the spy tapes, with that agreement, are you now saying, is he going to pay from his personal coffers? But also, the amount you are pointing at, we don't think that it includes cases like the Nkandla case, cases like the public protector's case, which the court was very clear that he must pay from his personal pocket, and he's appealing that. So if you were to take almost all these cases, that amount will not be accurate, because in our own calculations, we are sitting at almost 64 million, which has been paid for legal costs of the former president, the delinquent himself, who you kept and is still campaigning for you, creating an impression that there are two presidents in your ruling party. So we are saying to you that you removed him because you thought this guy was not good enough. He has cost us a lot of money as the state, yet he's good enough to campaign for your beautiful face. Because now he's carrying your placard. You must be ashamed that such a person who has costed the state so much money because of personal reasons and avoiding to go to prison, he still goes around carrying your poster the same way as Ketane Mahlangu, walking with you. You are so proud to walk with delinquents around you and claim to be clean.
Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The amounts that have been collated are the amounts that the Department of Justice and Correctional Services has been able to collect up to now. Honorable Malema is quoting amounts of 64 million. I am not aware of that. We have been using the agreement, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Malema, the agreement that was struck between former President Jacob Zuma and the government as this instrument that has enabled the government to help pay the money, on the understanding, as the agreement clearly states, that the money will be paid back if he is found to have been personally responsible for these acts. Now, that was an agreement that was struck. Now, we also need to make a distinction between the payment, the various legal cases that have been going on, to which he has appealed. He has appealed against certain cases where legal costs have been involved, and those need to be separated from the ones that we are talking about now. The ones that we've spoken about being 15 million, having divided them into two categories. So those are the ones that we have deeper knowledge of, and the instrument which you ask, which instrument did we use? We used the agreement, and clearly it is. I will need to check that more closely. I will need to do that. This is not the first time that this has been done. It has been done before for other officials, and indeed, because you see, the acts that former President Zuma was charged with, he was charged with acts that arose as he was occupying a government position. Yes, it was. No, it was not before. It was as a result of conduct that had to do with him occupying a government position. And in that regard, yes, there is a practice that those who are charged for activities, be they criminal or otherwise, and this agreement covers that. The agreement covers that. For those who are charged, the government will cover that. And when the court finally, and this is important, because our judiciary is so independent that it does, even in the end, make a determination on the payment of costs, of legal costs. So once these matters are finalized, the court will be able to make a determination. And in this regard, they will even have line of sight of this agreement that has been reached. And I'm sure that when they do make a determination on basis of the outcome of the case, they will be able to determine how those legal costs should be dealt with. Right now, because the agreement is still in place, there's just no way in which we could right now say to President Zuma, in violation of the agreement that was reached, that he must pay the costs. And I know that it would be exciting on many people's minds that he must pay back the costs, but we have to wait until that case is finalized and a determination is made by court. We did it on the basis of an agreement. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Alberts.
Speaker.
No, you can't have two opportunities, Honorable
My question
Malema.
is not answered.
No, Honorable Malema, take your seat.
That's where we have a problem, because my question is not answered.
No, Honorable Malema.
I've written a question to the president about which policy was he following.
Honorable Malema, the president
says
has
to me-
responded to you.
No, he says to me,
He
you have
has
to
told
check
you
which
that
law.
he has to check on that.
But this was a written question to him long before he came here.
Honorable
It's
Malema,
here. He should have checked before he comes here.
take
Now
your
he
seat.
says to me,
Take
you have
your
to go and
seat,
check the law.
Honorable
Even when
Malema.
I've written a question to him, what is the purpose of writing a question?
Honorable Malema, take your seat.
But my question is not answered, Speaker.
Honorable
What is the
Malema,
purpose of this exercise? Are we
take your
going back
seat.
to a situation
You are
where...
allowed to pursue that issue outside of this sitting right now.
Where would I
We
see
have
this
to
guy?
proceed.
I can't see him anywhere. Where would
We
I find
have
him?
to proceed to
I will
Honorable
look for you in
Alberts.
Sundays.
The Honorable Alberts.
Thank you, Speaker.
On a point of order, Speaker. On a point of order.
What's the point of order, Honorable
Like-
Shivambu?
The Constitution and the rules of the National Assembly places an obligation on us as Parliament to hold the executive, and more specifically the President, accountable. We do that through oral questions and through written questions. We have written a question exactly 2 weeks ago. How does it come about that a president comes here without an answer about giving us a legal reference, because all money of the state has to be spent according to law? Why are we not given the answer as to what is the legal basis of taking money of the state? What is the legal basis of the agreement of taking money of the state and give to a constitutional delinquent who has been wasting our time going to court after court? Because if we do not deal with that decisively, it means someone else is going to do it. How many public representatives are there? There are many MECs in South Africa. Like, because when Jacob Zuma did these things, he was an MEC in KwaZulu-Natal. When he was accused of corruption with the sheikhs, he was an MEC in KwaZulu-Natal. So are you saying that all the MECs, all the MMCs, all the ministers must come and
Honorable
queue for legal
Shivambu,
costs from the state?
please.
What law is establishing the giving of money to Jacob Zuma?
The president has now responded, and you are not satisfied with his response. He has said he will check on that. You are complaining. We cannot dwell much longer on this back and forth between you and your dissatisfaction and the president. It can be pursued outside of this sitting. can only be pursued outside of this sitting, and I'm not allowing that the time of this sitting must be further wasted on this
Speaker.
matter.
You know, all workers would like to be like Utatu Mkwati, get out, get educational opportunities so that they themselves are educated like him. But the problem is the mining charter is not enforceable. There are no consequences when people or these companies that are in either way involved in aggressive tax avoidance and illicit financial flows, when they don't meet the targets, there are no consequences, there is no punishment. So if they don't give community opportunities, if they don't improve housing, if they don't give workers skills, there are no punishment. Would you consider nationalization of mines that don't meet the targets, taking into consideration the important objectives of transformation on one hand, and the other, the fact that has been properly demonstrated by even the former President Thabo Mbeki that they are engaged in aggressive tax avoidance? Shouldn't one of the mechanisms to make them comply, the fact that if they don't, we are going to expropriate them without compensation?
The Honorable the President.
Thank you. And that money, if we have nationalized it, will have to come from the fiscus. Because there is this thing that is called rights offers. They can come to the company as managers and say, we need to go and exploit a particular ore body and need to sink a shaft, and it's going to cost us 20 billion rand. You are a shareholder. We require that you should follow your rights and give us so much money so that we can go and explore that. Now, the risks and the dangers that lie in store is something that one needs to examine very carefully. Because it is all very well to say, go and nationalize, and sometimes you can be nationalizing. One, mining is a wasting asset. You could be pouring your money down a drain, and quite often, in my view, sometimes it's better to rely on people who have a huge appetite for risk. Now, I would need to ask myself, do we have, as a nation, an appetite for risk to be able to go and pour billions of money into holes in the ground and sometimes don't find the ore body that we want, and sometimes the commodity pricing keeps going up and down, and then sometimes there are years of drought and there are years of boom, because mining in the end, in the most part, is bust and boom. You could go bust, you could also have great years of boom. Is that what we want to subject our type of state to, which is a developmental state, to processes like that? Are there other industries that would be better placed to be able to yield better? You may find that, shareholders would say, yes, come and nationalize. Even if it is without compensation, take the burden out of our hands. Because quite often, those who are involved in the mining industry will tell you that as it is a wasting asset, it's an asset from day one, you're just going down. And you may just benefit for a short while. And is that what we would want to expose our general fiscus to? So, yes, 50 years of bust and boom. Bust and boom, Honorable Ndlozi. So would we consider that? I would be welcome for you to engage in research and assessment, but also to rely on the knowledge of people who have experienced it. Go and sit down and talk to Honorable Mantash, who has been in the mining industry, and he will tell you what mining is all about. Mining is an industry that's not for sissies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. President, the reason why the NPA is where it is now, right now, is the source of corruption, nepotism, and issuing of unlawful instructions by the executive. So what have you done right now in terms of ESCOM appointing Mr. Debengwa, who was the main man behind your campaign and your close friend? What happened to SAA, the appointment of Ms. Dudumieni as the closest friend of Mr. Zuma, is the very same situation that the NPA is in right now. So with you appointing Mr. Debengwa, are you not encouraging the very same thing
Honorable
that
member,
it must continue in the
your time has
country?
expired.
Because the state-owned entities are the very same thing as the NPA.
Honorable President.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm required to answer directly. You say the issue of Mr. Dabengwa. Mr. Dabengwa is an executive that I have known for a long time. He used to be an executive at ESCOM, and then he left and he went to be an executive at MTN, and he then became the chief executive officer of MTN. Very, very astute and well-experienced person that I know. When the name of Mr. Dabengwa was brought to be appointed as a director, I immediately said, I know him and I'd like to recuse myself from being part of the decision that will lead to the appointment of Mr. Dabengwa. I decided, and I think I'd like you to understand this, I decided that I should recuse myself to avoid and not hide the fact that I know him, to avoid a situation where I could be accused of a conflictual relationship. I do not have any ongoing relationship of whatever nature with Mr. Dabengwa, except for the fact that I know him, and knowing him as well as a person who I was chairman of at MTN. Beyond that, I am not involved with Mr. Dabengwa in any manner whatsoever. And in no weddings and dinners. Now, I had the antenna in my head told me that, one, you've got to declare that you know him and recuse yourself. And get people who might want to decide on him to know that, one, you've recused yourself and you do not want to get involved in any way, shape, or whatever. Now, it often happens that when we have to appoint people, we either know them in one way or another. And maybe you've been to university with them, that you've met them along the road. And when it comes to a conflictual relationship, it needs to be determined whether his activities, wherever he's deployed, are going to be of such a fraudulent nature that they will be geared towards advancing your position. Now, I can say with certainty, Mr. Dabengwa's role and participation in ESCOM is not going to be of a fraudulent nature advancing my interests. That will not happen under any circumstance. Now, I know that we become fearful because of experiences that we have had in the past. Yes, and I can give you assurance that That is not going to happen with me. And thank you very much.